The Travel Transformation Podcast is proud to be partnered with Give the Goodness Global, an amazing global outreach project helping families in need all over Southeast Asia and beyond. Please check them out at Instagram.com/Give the Goodness Global today. And now on to the podcast episode.
Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, where we talk all things travel and all things transformation, exploring the life-changing potential of solo travel, intentional travel, and location-independent working. Whether you're an aspiring digital nomad or simply wish to boost your confidence through epic travel experiences, I'm here to motivate and inspire you to go after all your wildest dreams. I'm Jessica Grace Coleman, author, certified travel coach, founder of the Travel Transformation Company, and your host for the Travel Transformation Podcast. Travel changed my life. Now let's change yours. You ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, where we talk all things travel and all things transformation. My name is Jessica Grace Coleman, and I'm your host. And today I'm talking to Grace Simmons, travel mindset coach and founder of the Amethyst Palaver Hut LLC. Grace's passion is showing others how to build confidence through wellness and travel. She's spent 9 years as a US Army officer. She has travelled since she was a child, sometimes sent alone under the care of the flight crew, and has successfully planned solo trips both locally and internationally. She is a certified life coach in confidence and mindset life coaching, and she specialises in emotional intelligence. She is also the host of the Random and Wonderful podcast, which I went on as a guest recently, so keep an eye out for that. And she loves God, food, and dancing randomly to no music, my kind of person. In this episode, we discuss the power of solo travel, emotional intelligence, Grace's experience as an Army reservist, her empowered solo program and retreat, skydiving, and the epiphanies you can have while hurtling to the earth, and much, much more. So let's get straight to the interview. Hi, Grace. Thank you for coming on the podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Okay, so I want to just dive straight in here because we've got a lot to talk about. So can you introduce yourself a little bit? So who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
My name is Grace Simmons. I'm the founder of the Amethyst Palaver Hut. And through that organization, I am a travel mindset coach. I'm based in Gaithersburg, Maryland, in the United States.
Nice. And I wanted to ask you about all your life coaching, your confidence and mindset life coaching. And I read that you specialize in emotional intelligence. So for people who might not really understand what this is, or they hear it and not entirely sure, can you explain what emotional intelligence is and also why it's so important for us to be aware of and to work on?
Absolutely. Emotional intelligence is is like two parts. So how you process your emotions and then how you react appropriately to the situation. And so emotional intelligence isn't suppressing your emotions. It's not acting in a way that is not aligned with your situation. It's understanding the emotions that are happening and they're occurring, and then either not dismissing them, but like redirecting them to a more constructive result, or you can pause for a second and process them first. We talk about building your confidence. Emotional intelligence is like the foundation of that, because you have to understand who you are first and how you present yourself to other people before you can say, yes, I am confident, because you have to know what you're confident in and who you're confident in. So understanding your emotions and being kind to yourself and actually being able to process, like, I'm frustrated about this, instead of just saying I'm frustrated, like, what is it about the situation that's frustrating? So it seems like kind of an easier thing. Like, I understand that I'm angry and that's just who I am. It's also key to say, okay, I'm angry about this because this is a trigger for me. And this is what I can do to cope. All of that is emotional intelligence. So it's kind of a journey, but it's a really good process because you have to know who you are and how you deal with situations.
Yeah. And I think so many people, they don't really take the time to pause, to process, to dig down deeper into the reason behind something, because I think we're not really brought up sort of being taught how to do that kind of thing. We taught maths and science and all that stuff that's useful, but we don't get taught any of this kind of stuff. So I think it's really important for life coaches, mindset coaches, confidence coaches to get the word out there and just make people start how they think about things, if that makes sense, because a lot of people, they don't even sort of think about that. So you mentioned confidence a lot there. I'm guessing this is an important topic to you. So how did you get into this whole life coaching thing? Why is this so important to you?
So a little bit of my history is that I used to be in the military. I was a reservist. And as an officer, one of the roles that we're supposed to have is to be a mentor. And usually that means giving advice and that's it. But I found myself when I'm having conversations with a lot of these other soldiers, because we're reservists, you're split between being a civilian or being and then being in the military. And just that, like, who am I outside of this uniform? And I think a lot of people struggle with that because they put so much of their meaning and their worth into being a soldier, which is great. But when you take off the uniform, then we have that disconnect of who you really are. And so I realized that in that mentorship, those conversations that I started to have were more about confidence, like you are who you are with or without the uniform. And that led to the Amethyst Palaver Hut being something that, one, I wanted to people resources just so they could do their own personal development and read a little bit more and take those assessments on their own. But it just wasn't what I needed to get at. And I realized that coaching is what that tool is. Being able to have these conversations and guiding someone to realize their own path. That's the neat thing about coaching is you're not telling people what they should be doing, right? You have them going along a path. And I think that's more of add your name there, that's more of a transformative experience than it is for you to just tell someone what to do. And so that I did a couple of certifications to make sure that I myself understood how to coach someone through confidence and how to coach someone through emotional intelligence, because I think it is a more lasting impact for you to guide them through that process versus just giving them a resource and then saying good luck. So that's how that became more of a process for me.
Sorry for my ignorance, but can you just explain what a reservist is in the Army?
Yeah, absolutely. So usually we have some full timers. So 24/7, they are soldiers. A reservist, you're part-time. So it's once a month and then 2 weeks out of the year. And so during that 1 month, it is like your time to shine. We are soldiers. We are going through our whole thing. It's like a Saturday, Sunday kind of thing. And then those 2 weeks, we practice whatever your role is. And so for my last unit, we were observers, trainers, and coaches. Yeah. Coaching has always been there somehow. I don't think I really noticed, but yeah. So what we would do is we would train soldiers who are about to be deployed. We would review what they're going to do and make sure they're prepared actually for their deployment. And so if they weren't, or they were missing a couple of things, we would give them recommendations to make sure they're all set. So that our 2 weeks was like, again, our time to shine. But then you have a full-time job that you're balancing. And it seems like it doesn't take that much time. Even though we're meeting once a month, there's things to do in between the months. I was an officer, so I had to check in with my soldiers. I had to call them and make sure things are okay. There are things that we need to prep for that week. So it's very much a part of your life. It only shows up every once in a while. And I think that balance became a friction point for a lot of soldiers.
Wow. Okay. I didn't even know this was like a thing, really. So how did you get into this in the first place?
School. So my unit, or the school that I wanted to go to, had a reservist program. And so I joined there. There was a scholarship for school. I needed money. And so I joined the reserves. I did it in high school as well, but then I joined in as a college student. And I got into a logistics unit, which was always fascinating to me. So essentially logistics is moving people and things from point A to point B. And so it's really neat to see all these different pieces come together, connecting the different groups and stuff like that. And so I did that for almost 9 years, moving from a more like logistics heavy unit to a group that like our entire purpose is to make sure people are trained and developed and coaching them on things that they needed to work on. And so that was a great way for me that was one of the last units that I was in. So learning all these different things contributed to my life now as a life.
Yeah, I love how you can look back and like every job you've done or every project or anything, you can take something from it and see how you're actually using it now, even if you didn't realize that you have been doing that. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So about travel a little bit, because I know you've traveled since you were a child and that you were sometimes traveling alone under the care of a flight crew. So I want to know about this because I see this on movies and stuff, and I'm like, man, that kid is like, they must be like so excited, like feel so grown up. Like, so how old were you when you were doing this kind of traveling? And can you remember how you felt about it? Were you nervous? Were you excited? Was it like a really cool thing, or were you like, oh God?
It was a blend. So, goodness, how old was I? It had to maybe like seven or a little bit older. So my parents are missionaries. They're born in Liberia. They educated and work in the United States. And then they went back to Liberia to establish their organization. And so before I was born and as a child, like we were flying back and forth from California to Liberia, West Africa. And so travel has always been a thing. But because I have family here in the States, my parents would just send me over for holidays or vacation or whatever. And so we know you'd have like a little tag that would identify you as like not as a solo traveler, but like as a kid traveler. And so you're just sitting there. It was exciting, but now I know where my anxiety comes from, but I also would just feel like, I don't want to be left behind, right? I'm this little kid just sitting there. And so I would just be very focused on the airline desk, like, do not leave me. And they're like, we see you and whatever. But it was fun, like once I got on the plane. So you're up front because the flight attendants have to keep an eye on you. It's always fun to just be this little kid with your feet swinging and there's like a businessman sitting next to you. What is happening? But it was wonderful. I enjoyed the whole like adventure of it. That waiting part, once that was over, I got into the plane. I was excited. I remember, I think we had an incident where there was like really bad turbulence. Because I love roller coasters, it felt more like a roller coaster than the plane is like shaking, And so that was actually a really fun event for me. So I don't think in that sense I was scared or terrified, actually. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the adventure. I knew that I was going to go see some family and then I'd be heading back home. And so either way, I was excited to go or to come, and just the in between of it was all fun.
I love that. I'm going to think of that now. If I'm on a plane and there's turbulence, I'm just going to pretend it's a roller coaster. It's way more
roller
fun.
Coaster. That's it.
Amazing. Okay, so you said that you learned the best features of yourself through solo travel, and that when you were having a hard time in your life, you constantly felt like a supporting character in your own life. And I think a lot of people can probably relate with this. So can you expand on this for me? Why did you feel like this, and how did solo travel help you with this?
Yeah. Talking about my military career, it's a very supportive role. I used to tease that I was like the unit's counselor, right? Everyone was always telling me their problems. Even family would be telling me their problems. And I think when I would try to do the same, or like, I'm really frustrated about this job, and the response I would get back was, well, at least you have this job, at least you have this stable job. And it was always minimized. And then there were just some other incidences, especially at work, where I felt like I like to grow. I like to learn. I like to ask questions. And when I get into instances where I'm being told, well, look, just focus on your work. Please stop asking all these questions. And no, there is no growth or learning opportunity. I would feel really restricted. And so it was definitely a struggle. So professionally, I felt really restricted. And then in my personal life, I didn't really feel like I had that kind of exchange that I needed. So if someone else is able to tell me something that's emotional and like they can process their emotions with me, I needed that as well from other people. And so I learned that, well, I'm going to have to figure out how to do some things on my own. So that led to this solo travel, which was actually supposed to be a group trip. But my friend, her passport got caught up in that whole renewal process. And I want to say it was a little after COVID had started. And so just every single thing was even slower than it normally is. And she was like, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to go. And I thought, I really want to go to Iceland. I want to visit my brother in Germany. And I remember flying over and seeing like the Northern Lights in the plane as we were flying. And I was like, oh my goodness, I need to like be on the ground and actually see this. This is going to be wonderful. So I've always wanted to go. And I thought, you know what? I think I'll just go. We could probably plan another trip. I do need to do this because I haven't done a solo trip for myself. I haven't done a trip for myself. Usually, like I said, as a kid, I'm traveling, it's going to visit family. And so that would always be the extent of my trips. It was, let me go see other people. Let me go check on other people. I haven't seen this other person in a while. Let me go check on them. So this was an opportunity for me to just do this trip for myself. And so that's what I did. And I had to rework our plan, and I had to figure out how to enjoy the trip as someone who was by themselves. And, if you're going on a trip with other people, you can kind of like borrow from their energy. You can, if someone else is excited about something else, you can try that out. But when you're on your own, it's really helpful to plan it out first. Not too stringent. I just think it's important to be able to say what would Grace want to experience on this trip, and then do that versus I want to compare my trip to everyone else and be stressed out about it. So what I learned from that was just figuring out my own path. Like, what do I want to do? And trying to understand, like going back to that emotional intelligence, why do I need to wait for someone else to tell me what I can do or what I can't do or how I should feel about something? And then I learned to just speak up because I was there by myself. I didn't have anyone else to talk for me. And so I had to get my questions out. I always ask questions. So I had to research things and just learning again, who I am, what things I liked, using that voice. Those are things that I was able to pull back when I got back to work. And I realized that, no, it's not okay that I'm in a space where all of my questions are minimized, or I'm bringing up legitimate concerns of our flow and our process, and that's being minimized because someone else's, their level of like conflict management is not where it should be, and they would just rather sweep it under the rug. And so it wasn't okay. And that inspired me to get another job. And so I had stayed in that role for about 4 years. And after that trip, I think I left maybe a few months after that. And the next job I had, my supervisor was very much a micromanager. She was so uncomfortable with what she did. She like tortured everyone. And it took me a year to leave that one. So it was just the growth from staying in a role for 4 years, trying to make something work, to no, I realized this is not going to work for me, and looking for another opportunity to where I am now, where I get to dive into leadership and development and all the things that I've been enjoying. Like you said, you have roles that you don't even realize you're slowly like building things that you like. And I'm now in a role where I enjoy what I do. I get to plan, I get to ask the questions, I get to help other people see how they can be better. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't push myself to travel in the first place.
Do you want to learn all about the 5 travel transformation principles, including how to conquer your fears through travel? Then you need to grab a copy of my Travel Transformation Guide, written by me, Jessica Grace Coleman, as part of my Flip the Script Academy. It's totally free. All I ask for in exchange is your email address so I can keep you updated on all things travel and transformation. Just head to traveltransformationcoach.com/free guide to get your guide today. And now, let's get back to the Travel Transformation podcast. I love that. I mean, obviously, I think travel is transformative on its own, especially solo travel. But I've had similar trips where it's just changed everything for me. It's changed the way you look at things. You come back and you actually make a huge life decision, and just one trip can change the trajectory of your life. And it's, all the things you learn on that trip, take them with you into your other areas of your life, your career, business, whatever. And I love that. People think of, just transforming in the moment in travel and having like amazing times and making amazing memories, which is true. But then, the actual real transformation comes afterwards, when you go back and like actually think, like, what was I feeling during this trip and what am I not feeling now? And I've had the same thing, like been away on a trip and then come back and like left my job and like started like a side hustle. And, it's just, it's something about travel that makes you look at things from a different perspective, I think, because you're in a different place anyway. Physically, you're in a different place mentally. And I just love that whole aspect to travel, especially solo travel. And I know you're very passionate about solo travel because you have a program called Empowered Solo. Is that what it's called? Yeah. So can you tell me about this?
Yeah. So Empowered Solo is an 8-week coaching program. And what I'd like to do is just work with women who felt the way I do. So they struggle with trying to find their own voice. They have probably depended on other people to make decisions for them. They just feel completely disconnected to that person, their really authentic self. And so taking women through this program, like I said, it's going to be about 8 weeks where we're just going to learning who you really are. I'm excited about travel. I think travel is super important, but something that I do stress is that travel in itself, if you're not going to make any changes, it won't make that change for you. You have to, like you said, you have to ask those good questions. What is it that I'm feeling now that I want to feel? Actually, a really great question. And so making sure that you're considering the different things that you can change. And so this program is going to take people from that first point of I'm struggling to believe and know who I truly am to I know who I am. I know what I want. I'm proud of this voice that I have, and I'm ready to travel solo. And then we end with an in-person retreat. So just getting all the participants together because the course is going to be virtual and just being able to see each other in person, go over our plan as we conduct your actual solo trip.
That's amazing. I was going to ask about the in-person retreat because I think that's a great way of ending it. Like you say, so many things these days are virtual that it makes a huge difference when you can actually get together and connect in person. And that sounds amazing. So can people book this now? Is this on your website? How can people find out about this?
Yes, they can. It's on my website. It's Amethyst Palaver Hut. So AMETHYSTPALAVERHUT.com. It's right there on the website. And there's going to be a lot more information of what's included, pricing, and just what to expect on this adventure. So there are only going to be 8 seats available, but it is open now. And the deadline to apply is January 20th.
Great. And we'll put the link to that in the show notes as well. And I know you also offer a confidence clarity session. So can you tell me what this is and who can benefit from this?
Yeah, this is beneficial for anyone who wants to begin the process of coaching or one-on-one coaching. So this is a free session. I think it's important in order to have these conversations to even decide if you want to be coached, to have that initial, let's just get to know each other conversation. Let me understand what your goals are. And I want to make sure that I'm helping someone that I can truly help. And so if the person has needs that maybe are beyond my scope, I'm so grateful that I've grown a good community of other coaches. So I'm happy to refer them, but I'd like to work with someone who is on that path of wanting to build their confidence and they would like to learn about who they are. And at the end, I want them to be able to commit to a solo trip. So that's what our process is going to be. The initial call is just to get an idea of what each of us expect from one another. Let me understand what your current confidence level is. And then we develop those goals. So what are some things that you want to work on? By the end of the call, I'd at least like to have one actionable step that you can take before you head off and hopefully continue to coach with me. Or maybe that's just the conversation was all you needed. But at the end, you will have at least one thing to do to keep you going on your journey.
Nice. I'll put the link to that in the show notes as well. So if anyone's interested, just go and take a look at that. Before I get on to my next question, I meant to ask this earlier and totally forgot. So when you went to Iceland, did you get to see the Northern Lights when you were there?
I did not. So
No.
I ended up going. I ended up going in the summer, which meant I got to be up there when there was sunlight all day, which is very fun. Fun as in, you don't realize it's 2:00 in the morning because it looks like dusk or very early evening, the sun sets a bit, but it's still very bright, which is actually nice. I think that if anyone's doing a solo trip, you should go to Iceland in the summertime because it's well lit and Iceland's safe already, but it's just nice to be able to see what's going on. And if you happen to be a night owl like I am, and you feel like wandering around, you can see where you're going. So it just adds to that safety. And it's nice to I didn't get to see the Northern Lights, but I was able to go to a couple of different places. There's a show on Netflix called Katla. They film at this, it's the Black Sand Beach, and they have this little church. And so one of the tours I took, I actually got to see the area where they filmed or where it was based, but also where they filmed it. And so it didn't exactly make up for the Northern Lights, but I was very excited that I got to see this place that I had just watched and check out the Black Sand Beach, which is like beautiful and terrifying. And even though it was summer, it was extremely cold. So it's neat. It's a beautiful place. And so the Northern Lights are great to see. Just a heads up, summer is probably not the best time because, again, it's really bright. But definitely during the winter, I think I would have been better.
That just means you have to go back again so you can see them. So
it does.
Terrible.
100%.
It's just a great excuse.
Oh, no.
I went for like a 2 or 3 night stopover on the way to the States one year, but it was around autumn. So we had a few hours of daylight and then it was dark. And I was like, yeah, I need to come back in summer when it's just, daylight. Because I was only there for a few days and even I was getting a bit like depressed. I was like, I need the sun. Like, it's just, one of those crazy things. Anyway, so...
that's a good point, actually, because I think people forget. You're like, oh, I want to see the Northern Lights. It's going to be really dark. It's
going to be pretty dark.
And so just keeping in mind, like, it's dark. It's up there, it's all the way up at the top of the globe. So anyway.
Yeah. Incredible place, though. Absolutely. I need to go back and explore more. Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to mention your podcast, the Random and Wonderful Podcast. I love that name, by the way. I love random stuff and wonderful stuff. I was lucky enough to be a guest on it recently, so I know all about it. But for people listening, please can you explain what your podcast is about and why you started it in the first place?
Yeah, the Random and Wonderful, I'll start with what it is first. It is all about travel, wellness, and confidence. I wanted to share stories of my own experience because they're just random things that happened to me. And I'm like, that was so unnecessary. But as I'm explaining the story, I'm like, oh, wow. But you know what I learned out of that? Da, 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 da. Or, oh my goodness, I don't know how I ended up over here, but I met this really cool person. There are a lot of things that happen. I think it's important to like reframe your mind to see it from a positive lens, not like forced positivity. If something's absolutely terrible, let it be terrible. But just finding things that you can learn out of it. And so that was why I created it, is because I wanted to be able to share those things. And then there are other people who, and this is just my own personal excitement, is being able to invite other people to share their incredible stories. So like when you came on, I got to hear your story and why you started. And so I think that's a part of like that Random and Wonderful. So it's life gives you so many neat opportunities to learn more about yourself, to grow, to meet other people, and then also to give of yourself. And so if we're able to just do all that, it sounds really corny, but I genuinely think the world would be a better place if we have these kind of conversations and we can exchange like just that knowledge and those skills, and tell me your funny story or tell me something that made you feel really vulnerable. And we grow from learning one another's stories. So that's what the Random and Wonderful is all about.
Love it. And we'll put the link to that in the show notes too. I highly recommend people check that out. I asked you if you wanted to talk, if you had anything else you wanted to talk about on the podcast, if we had time, and you said skydiving. So let's talk about this because I've never done it. I know myself, I know the feeling of doing it would be amazing and that I would love it, but I just cannot imagine myself actually stepping out of a plane. Like, it's just not going to happen. I always say I don't have a fear of heights. I just have a fear of falling from them. So tell me about skydiving.
So skydiving, it was incredible. I'm going to start there. I will share my fear though. So my cousin was graduating and that was going to be her gift to herself if she wanted to skydive. And so I went with her, and I remember having a colleague who had gone and they were like, oh my goodness. And this woman is much older than I am. And she was like, oh, Grace, you should definitely do that. And I was like, I'm so happy for you. I'm not going to do that. But then my cousin came up and she was like, yeah, I was thinking about it. I'm like, oh, yeah, me too. Yeah, let's do this. So I'm like doing all this research and I'm trying to reading all the terrible things. But I just wanted to like prep myself. What can I expect and all that? And we went and they do this training course, and I did tandem skydiving. So you are strapped to another person who loves skydiving. They have so many jumps. They are professionals. Like, that's the key part, right? You just along for the ride. And I love that that's an option. So you go through your training, you're attached to this person. And I think I was fine. Like, I was a little nervous, but I wasn't like, what am I doing? Until they opened the door. And I just looked outside and there was like blue sky. I was like, oh, this is different, right? And they teach you the whole, like, you're supposed to, you scooch all the way to the end And I was trying really hard to concentrate on making sure I was, not that I thought I was going to do it wrong. Again, you are strapped to a professional, but just like, let me concentrate on this and not pay attention to the beautiful sky that's outside of this window. And then you get in, or you get like right off to the edge, and you just kind of lean out of the plane. And as I was falling, I remember screaming for what felt like a strong 10 minutes. And then I ran out of air, and I had to like inhale very sharply and then to continue screaming. And I was like, I've been falling for quite some time. I don't want to scream anymore. Also, my eyes were closed. So I'm missing this entire fall. I'm screaming, my eyes are closed. And I was like, I paid a lot of money to get up here. And so I stopped screaming. I opened my eyes, and it was such a like humbling but beautiful experience just to see how vast the world is, right? And as you're falling, it's not like, I don't know, I feel like movies make it terrifying. Again, you are a human being falling, but it's just like, you're so small and it takes such a long time for you to get there. So you have time to actually like observe and just look at everything. It's the green grass, the trees, the lakes. You can see the like birds flying along. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's just this incredible feeling of like, I felt like the control that I was trying to have over my life, I realized I didn't have it. But instead of it being like, I now have no control of my life, I felt like I have the freedom to move about and actually enjoy things like this. So that was like such an eye-opening experience. Mind you, I'm still falling. So I'm having this entire like epiphany, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful to be on this planet. Like, God, I'm so happy that you made this, and da-da-da. And I'm just having this conversation again, still falling. And then they finally open the parachute, and you can kind of like sit up and take a look, and you're just floating down. But it's incredible. It is an incredible experience that you just feel throughout your entire body. And it's not the fear, and maybe it's the adrenaline, but it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And so that moment of fear, I think, lasted probably the first half of me screaming. And then after that, it was just a wonderful experience. I felt so humbled. I felt so like grateful that I did it. Yeah. And the view is amazing. Like bird's eye view, literally. It was absolutely amazing to just see the vastness of this planet and know that there's so much more out there to explore. And so that was like one of those stirrings, like, okay, I think this was after I had gone to Iceland, and then I did this. And I thought, I don't understand how people work every day, just not like just doing the exact same thing every day. You know, like after that experience, I was like, oh, we need to shake things up. Like I need to do more things, because I was like, there's so much out there. Like the world is wonderful. I felt very renewed afterwards. So I think it's a great like jolt of trying to shake yourself out of that everyday same routine. Like just like, that's one of those like do something crazy kind of thing. Go skydiving, jump out of a plane, attached to a professional. I just want to stress that, because like there's an opportunity where you get to like guide the parachute, and the guy's like, go ahead. And I was like, please just you drive.
I'm good.
I'm just here. I'm good. Just let me float. That's it. But yeah, it's a wonderful experience. I'm not going to lie and say I wasn't scared or terrified, because it is. You're literally falling out of a plane. But when you do it, it's incredible. And I think everyone should do it.
Oh, I love that. I went through a range of emotions there where I was listening to you speak. I was like sweating. I could feel myself getting nervous, even though I'm not in a plane about to choke myself out. And then I was like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And I talk about having magical movie moments when you're traveling or any time. And it's just like something out of a movie. It's like a moment in time. And that sounds like the most epic magical movie moment you could possibly have, sort of falling to earth and having this epiphany and the view and everything. So yeah, maybe one day I'll get the courage to do it, but I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. maybe. But no, I love the way you described it. Yeah, maybe. Give me a few years to get the courage. Yeah. Okay, great. So I have two last questions. We kind of already answered them, but first of all is where people can find and follow you online. So I'll just reiterate that. It's www.amethystpalaverhut.com. So go there. And like I say, I'll put these in the show notes as well as the podcast and the free discovery session you can get. So my last question is, do you have anything else you want to mention or any last message you want to get across to the listeners before we go, either about traveling, about solo traveling, about confidence, or anything else?
Yeah. So one of the things that I close out the podcast with is that I want to encourage everyone to share their story. And if your journey involves travel, if it involves confidence, share your story, because you don't know what other people are going through. And so when you're able to share that story, you are inspiring other people. You are encouraging others to do something that maybe they've kept secret, and just knowing that someone else has gone through it or someone else is in the midst of it. It's such a relief. It's not, it's like not that solution, but it's a relief to know that I'm not alone. And that's the entire point. That's the wonderful thing about travel. It's just reminding yourself that you're not alone. You can connect with other people. There's always some commonality between you and who you think is a stranger. So sharing your story is just an easy, free way to do that, so that you can connect with other people and connect beyond yourself.
I love that. Share your story. You never know who's listening. You never know what they're going through, and you never know what impact that sharing your story will have. So completely agree with that. Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really enjoyed our conversation. And one day I might try skydiving. So thank you.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me, Jess. This is wonderful.
No problem. Thank you for listening to the Travel Transformation Podcast with me, Jessica Grace Coleman. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could please subscribe, rate and review, and spread the word, because it's my mission to help as many people as possible to flip the script on their lives and transform through travel. And remember, life is short, so let's make sure it's nothing short of amazing. Until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.